chart, and I think that it will be helpful in our interest problems. So I've highlighted in green the simple interest formula and in yellow the compound interest formula. But because sometimes they ask us for the total amount when we're finding simple, I've also written in the box next to it, right here, the how to find the total amount when solving for simple interest. And then I've done the same thing for compound, is how to find the interest earned or paid according to the compound formula. So this will be helpful. So the S stands for simple, C compound, I stands for interest, and A stands for total amount. So this problem says Mr. Campbell took out a loan to buy a brand new cookie jar. The cost was $5.50 with a 6.5% simple interest rate over a term of 11 years. What is the total amount paid? All right, here we go in looking at which type of interest we're solving for. This says simple interest, and that would mean we're going to be looking at our simple interest formula. I equals PRT. So I'm going to go ahead and write my formula. I equals PRT. And the P, the R, and the T, principal, rate, and time, are going to be multiplied by each other. And then, as I substitute the numbers that I know, I see this here for the principal, this for the rate, and the 11 years for the time. So I can just go ahead and substitute the $5.50 for the P, and then multiply that times R, but I have to first take my 6.5 and divide it by 100 because it has to be in decimal form. So that will give me 0.065. And another way to look at that is 6.5, move the decimal 2 times to the left. And then my time will be 11 years. So when I multiply that across, I will get my interest. And then in order to find my total amount, because that's what they're asking for, I'm going to have to, right here, it's on simple interest. So in order to find my total amount, I'm going to have to add my principal, and that will give you A equals, and so this will be your final answer right here. Okay, now going across, we have what is the measure of this missing angle. So we learned about the triangle sum theorem, which stated that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3 equals 180 degrees. So, since a triangle has 3 angles, if you get it, tri, like a tricycle, and then angles, so 3 angles, we take the angles that we know and we can substitute them accordingly. So we have 104 degrees plus 47 degrees plus B degrees equals 180. So degrees. So we can combine our like terms. So we're going to combine these two in order to find our 104 plus 47. 4 and 7, that would be 11, 5, and 1. So $151 plus B equals 180. So now, in order to find B, which is the angle they're looking for, we're going to subtract 151 from both sides. So this one will become 0, and we'll be left with whatever this answer is right here to equal B. So that is the triangle sum theorem. now we're looking for the value of x. So we're still looking at the triangle sum theorem, which states that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of the second angle plus the measure of the third angle equals 180 degrees. So now I can take the angles that they've given us. So we have 12x plus 2 plus 34 plus 84 equals 180. So once again, we're going to combine our like terms, which will be here, here, and here. So we'll have to add up 84 plus 34 plus 2. So here we'll have 8, 9, 10. 9 and 3 is 12, so we'll have 120. And that will give us 12x plus 120 equals 180. So then, in order to get our constants together, I'm going to subtract 120 from both sides. This will become 0. We'll be left with 12x equals this answer here. 8 minus 2 is 6, 60. And then our last step will be to divide both sides by our coefficient. And we'll be left with our answer of x. All right, now we're moving to another theorem, which was the exterior angle theorem. So I'm going to write that. Exterior angle theorem. And this one states that the sum of the remote interior angles equals the exterior angle. So our remote interior are going to be the two 30 degrees and 130 degrees. So these two that are furthest away from my exterior angle, these are our remote, like a remote island, they're furthest away from the outside. So it's saying that the sum of your measure of angle 1 plus the measure of, if this were 1 and this were 2 and this were 3 and 4, the sum measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals the measure of angle 4. So then we can go ahead and substitute our numbers into here, and that will give us our answer. Once we combine our like terms, x will equal this. All right. There we go on that one. Going across, we have, so now we're skipping back to our, it says what is the length of the missing side, meaning when we're looking for missing sides, this is with right triangles, we're going to be using the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So something that I was asked a lot last week was the labeling of triangles. So remember, A and B equal legs, and C equals the hypotenuse, and the C has to be the longest. And the way to determine the longest, you look at the right angle, look at our right angle right here, and this will point to, the right angle points to the hypotenuse always. So they are given us, we have A, B, and C. So once we substitute the numbers that we know, we don't know A, so we're going to leave A squared plus 7.1 squared equals 8.7 squared. And then as we simplify and solve, we can take 7.1 and square it, which is multiplying it by itself, and we'll get A squared plus 50.4 8.41 equals 8.7 squared, which is 8.7 times 8.7, and that will give us 75.69. And from there, in order to get a by itself, we're going to have to subtract 50.41 from both sides. This one will become 0. Sorry, I forgot my line. A squared equals, we're going to take this number and subtract our 50.41, and then we'll be left with 25.28. But you're not done, because look here, we're looking for just a. We're not looking for a squared. So in order to find a squared, we're going to have to do the inverse operation. The inverse of squared equals the square root. So you'll be able to find a by taking the square root of both sides. Okay, going here. What is the measure of the missing angle? Okay, so switching away from the Pythagorean theorem and moving to the triangle sum theorem, which is the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3 equals 180. So again, we can substitute the ones that we know. We know 24 plus 29 plus b equals 180. And then here we go, we have to combine our like terms. 24 plus 29, 9 and 4 is 13. 53 plus b, oh that's plus b equals 180. And then you'll have to subtract from both sides, and you'll be left with what you'll get for angle B. What is the value of x? So again, working with the triangle sum theorem, we're going to add up our angles. So we'll take 52 plus 52 plus 4x minus 24 equals 180. So then we're going to solve for x, because that's what they're asking us to do. So we have to combine our like terms. So we have this one, and this one. So 52, but the key here, I want to just like point out this negative sign right here. So we have to make sure that we're not changing any signs. So it's going to be a 52 plus 52, which is 104. But then we have a negative 24, so we're going to have to subtract 24 from here. So that will give us 0, 10 minus 2 is 8. So we'll be left with 80 plus 4x equals 180. So again, having to get our x by itself, we're going to subtract. This will become 0, and we'll be left with 4x equals 100. And then remember that you'll have to divide both sides by the coefficient of 4, and then you'll be left with just your x. Hopping around again to our exterior angle theorem. So the exterior angle here equals W. So here's our exterior angle, and here's the exterior angle. So the exterior angle theorem is that the sum of your remote interior angles, so the remote interior angles are 45 degrees and 60 degrees. So we'll have to add those up to find what W is. And this one here says, could the following side lengths form a right triangle? So if we're working with right triangles, this is the Pythagorean theorem, which is, so if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, if they do equal each other, then we do have a right triangle. But if a squared plus b squared do not equal c squared, you do not have a right triangle. So you'll have to substitute these numbers. So remember, c equals the longest length side. So make sure that you label this is A, B, and C has to be the longest. So you'll have to substitute these numbers into the Pythagorean theorem and see if they do not equal each other. All right, what is the measure of the missing angle? So we have, looks like we're looking for B. So we're going to have to add all of these up. So this is the triangle sum theorem. There's three angles. We're adding these up and they have to equal 180. So we're going to take 38 plus this one here equals 90 degrees plus 90 plus B equals 180. So then combining our like terms, and we'll be able to subtract those and solve from there. What is the value of x? So again, we have three angles that have to add up to equal 180 degrees, because that is our triangle sum theorem. So we're going to take 55 plus 8x minus 8 plus 61 equals 180. So we need to combine our like terms. So we have to combine like terms without changing any signs. And what I mean by that is if there is a negative in front of it, like this one here, we have to keep this a negative 8. We have to keep this one a positive 61. We have to keep this one a positive 55. So when we add these up, 55 plus 61, 5 and 6 is 11. So then we're going to have to subtract 8 because we can't change its sign. So 16 minus 8 is 8, 0, 108. So we have 108 plus 8x equals 180. Then we're going to subtract 108 on both sides. So it becomes 0. We'll have 8x equals what this is, and then you'll have to divide both sides by the coefficient in order to get the x by itself, because we're looking for just the x, not 8x. And our last problem is an equation just as beautiful as ever. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my line. Then we have to first combine our like terms on both sides of the equal sign. So I'm going to go ahead and circle my constants. So the constants are those numbers that do not have a variable attached to them. And then I'm going to box my variables. And then I'm having to combine these on the same sides of the equal sign. So it's going to be negative 9x plus 4x. So negative 9x plus 4x. So if I have negative 9 and I'm adding 4, you're going to be left with a negative 5x minus 3, since there's no more constants. But on this side we have 22 and 5 that we need to combine, which will give us 27. And then we have x minus x, which would be 0. So that's what we'll be left with, because so positive x minus x, that will become 0. So these two cancel each other out. So from here, we will have to add 3 to both sides, and then we'll be left with negative, this will 0 out, we'll be left with negative 5x equals 30. And then our last step will be to divide, and to remember to divide both sides by negative 5. And then you'll be left with your answer. Alright, I hope this is helpful. I think my favorite thing from this video is this chart here. If you can learn this, and it will help you on your interest problems so that you don't get confused when they're asking for total or amount. You'll always know what numbers to plug in where.